asking him his questions, and you're gonna go first. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Hey, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this. We are so excited and so honored to have Dr. Paul Wilke joining us. We've been seeing Dr. Wilke for 5 years now, ever since we moved to San Antonio. I remember having work done with my middle daughter on my lap, and he was doing work in my mouth as an infant. So Dr. Wilke is a Christian. He is a husband and father of 4. You founded Total Mouth Fitness in '99, but he has been practicing dentistry for over 40 years. So he has quite a bit of experience under his belt. He is a member of the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. He is a member of the International Academy of Biologic Dentistry and Medicine. And so he is more than qualified to have this conversation with us. And we are so honored to have you, Dr. Wilke. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So we just have some questions and we'll just jump right in.
Yep. So first question is, what differentiates a biologic dentist from your regular dentist?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do different procedures and we use different materials. I mean, some of them, procedures are the same. You got a cavity, it needs to be filled. But a lot of people don't realize 50% of dentists still do mercury fillings. And those are horrible.
Yeah.
And even a lot of the biologic dentists do root canals, and they're horrible too, or even worse than a mercury filling. So biologic dentists basically realize that the head's connected to the body, and what we do in the mouth affects your health. So, it's ridiculous to put titanium implants in your mouth that have 6% aluminum, or to do root canals that are contain millions of anaerobic bacteria. And so biologic dentists are trained in removing all the junk properly and safely, and then putting in biocompatible materials. So, in a nutshell.
So it's almost like a lot of the conventional dentists create a problem that you have to solve to a certain degree. I mean, as far as the toxic materials.
That's right.
Yeah. So what can someone expect when going to a biologic dentist, just for general cleanings, just kind of like what's kind of the atmosphere, and how is it going to differ from going to a regular dentist?
I don't know. That's kind of hard to answer, because we do the exam, we do the Xrays. I guess I do a lot more educating to people so they understand why I'm recommending what I recommend. And basically to get out all the metal, which contributes to electromagnetic fields in the mouth, and then all the heavy metals, and then all the biotoxins, which would be root canals and cavitations. Awesome. So those are the basic areas we do. And then if they need help with nutrition, I'm also a nutritionist, so we educate them a little on detox.
Awesome.
So you have patients from all over the U.S., I know, but for somebody that's looking for a biologic dentist near them, how would they find somebody? What's the best way to find a biologic dentist?
Well, I'd go on those websites that you mentioned, the IAOMT and the IABDM, and they have search engines. You can find people. The IABDM doesn't like root canals. I agree with them. Mm-hmm. The IAOMT still won't condemn them. They think you can do healthier root canals.
Right.
We will definitely get into that.
There's some distinction there. Okay, that's important to notice.
Yeah. So as far as cost is concerned, is a biologic dentist going to be more expensive than a regular dentist?
I don't know. I've seen it both ways, and I don't go checking on what other people charge. Mm-hmm. I know some biologic dentists that are way expensive. We buy a book every year that's published. They do research on all the insurance companies, and they do polls on what people charge, and we try to set our fees kind of average. But it's a complicated subject because we get a lot of people come in for second opinions. For instance, I was telling you earlier that my pastor came to me and she said, I went to the dentist and he, or she, it was a female dentist, she said I had 9 cavities. And we looked and I found 1, So if I charge a little bit more than that dentist, but I'm only doing 1 and they're doing 9, who's more expensive, right?
Right.
And a lot of times we'll get treatment plans. People come in because they just can't believe they need all this work, and they'll diagnose and treatment plan crowns because they say the teeth are cracked. I'm telling you, there's lots of cracks in the enamel of molars and bicuspids, but it doesn't mean it's a problem. The crack has to go down into the dentin before it's a problem, and we find most of them through, removing mercury. And once the filling is out, you can look inside the tooth and you can see the cracks, whether there's, just 1 cusp or 2 cusps, or it's right down the middle and the thing's about to split wide open. And those definitely need crowns. So, so there's a lot of overdiagnosis of crowns. And then their treatment plan always, every time they're going to do a crown, they're going to do a buildup. And I almost never do a buildup under a crown. It's just not needed. We mill out ceramic and bond it in place. The strongest thing is the ceramic. It's much stronger than putting a piece of plastic in there and then crowning over it. Plus, it's less expensive. So, like I said, it's a complicated, and then the materials, the implants I use are really expensive compared to the titanium ones.
Yeah.
We use the ceramic implants, and I've got more expensive equipment than anybody I know. Our cone beam Xray is $136,000. I've got 2 lasers. One's $86,000. The other's $125,000. We've got.
You pay for what you get.
I've got so much equipment, it's crazy. Our crown making machine, we just updated it. It was another $86,000 to update our Cerac crown making machine. So,
well, and insurance wise, we pay up front, and then our insurance in our case has always reimbursed us for coming to you. So for us, it's not anymore, just for general cleaning and general maintenance.
But that's definitely something that I've heard from a lot of people. They'll go to their dentist and they'll say that they need several cavities, and I always tell them to go to a biologic dentist and get a second opinion, and more often than not, there's less cavities that are needed because they're just cavity happy out there. If there's a small little cavity, they want to do something with it right away.
Yeah, but as well as I do, there are righteous car salesmen and there are crook car salesmen. Yeah. There's righteous politicians and there's crook. Yeah. There's righteous dentists and there's crook dentists. It doesn't matter if they're biologic or conventional. True. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
You just gotta
find a good one.
Yeah. You just gotta pray and see if you're getting told the truth or not.
So one of the things that we love about you is that you see, like you said, the overall, body working as a whole, and you even have emphasis on nutrition, which we love as well. Emphasizing nutrition. So what is kind of, in short, the relationship between overall health and oral health, and even just like the gut and the mouth? How do they kind of affect each other?
Well, there's multiple connections. The heavy metal connection. You have mercury fillings. The mercury vaporizes 24/7. You breathe it in, it gets into your body. It goes to all the organs. It generally binds to sulfur groups and enzymes and distorts the enzymes so they're non-functional. And you take enough of them offline and then you start having health problems, and it can be, there's hundreds of different symptoms. There's one enzyme that it's activated by mercury, that's metal matrix proteinase, and so it causes wrinkles because it eats up proteins and connective tissue. It eats up the junction between the parietal cells and the gut, so it helps create leaky gut syndrome. And that's just mercury. You've got all the electrical. It's like having a cell phone next to your head 24/7. The electrical magnetic fields. And then the biotoxins, oh man, on root canals and cavitations, they seem to follow the meridians. So those are electrical connections that the Germans figured out. And we're extracting number 19 lower left first molar root canal 2 weeks ago. And I asked the lady if she had any shoulder problems. She said, yeah, how'd you know? I go, well, these teeth, this tooth is related to the shoulder.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, I got a frozen shoulder. I've been going to an urology and they've been working on it and, it's not helping. They want to give me a cortisone shot. And so I said, well, let's just see what happens. So I took her molar out and she went, oh my God, I couldn't do that before, and fixed her frozen shoulder. So I don't guarantee that at all.
Right.
But we don't treat medicine, we don't have to be practicing medicine without a license. But we see it all the time.
Yeah.
Crazy things
Anecdotal
happen.
evidence.
Yeah.
So a lot of dentists use and recommend the use of fluoride. And you and I both know, but for somebody that doesn't really know, fluoride has been linked to so many hosts of issues, lowered IQ, just so many problems. It can displace iodine from the body, which is an essential element that, we can't live without. So what is your opinion on fluoride?
Yeah, it's terrible. I agree with you. They put it in the water. Fluoridated water increases your absorption of lead. So they say, oh, we're going to make the kids, we're going to do this for the poor kids over on the bad side of town. And they're just making them dumber, by lead toxicity. And then it doesn't, they've proven it doesn't reduce tooth decay, in the water. It increases chance of cancer. There's just nothing good about it. It's not an essential mineral.
For sure. So kind of along those lines, with toothpaste, the most popular toothpaste right now I think is Crest 3D White. Kids Crest is the most popular kids toothpaste. The ingredients in these toothpastes are things like sodium fluoride, hydrated silica, sodium lauryl sulfate, among others. And then there's a warning on the back of these, it's like if swallowed or ingested, contact the poison control center. Why are we putting these poisons and toxins into our mouth and potentially swallowing them for kids?
The original research was up in New York State, and they took 2 cities in New York and they measured the decay rate, and then one of them they fluoridated and the other they didn't. Well, for some reason the decay rate went down in both cities. So they just ignored the non-fluoridated one, and they said, "Look, we fluoridated this city, and the decay rate went down. Yeah. It's an essential mineral. It's it's the greatest health thing in 100 years." Yeah, right. Fluoride, yeah, like you said, it displaces iodine. Bromine does the same thing. Chlorine does the same thing. Yeah. But if you will take iodine, which most people are deficient in iodine. They're all halides, so they all bind to the same sites. Yeah. So you can have, lots of thyroid hormone in your blood, but if it's bound up with fluoride, it's not active. And so if you supplement with iodine, it will kick off the bromine, the chlorine, the fluorine, and you'll detox. And you just need to start slow and then ramp it up to where you get, enough of that out of there to where your function comes back.
So what are some healthy alternatives to using, fluoride or these chemical-based toothpastes? We do something like activated charcoal with coconut oil, bentonite clay with some essential oil. Is something like that much better? Or
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that's what I recommend. Those kind of things. And there's hundreds of them out there. Just no fluoride, no sodium lauryl sulfate,
right,
and no tartar control stuff. The pyrophosphate is not good either.
So what actually causes a cavity, and are cavities able to be reversed?
It's a good question. So most people, I brush all the time, but I don't think Jesus brushed his teeth, and he probably didn't have cavities.
That's true.
So what is it? It's sugar. It's simple carbohydrates. So Dr. Steinman did studies, and the root of a tooth the whole tooth has got tubules in it. You can dry it off and you can watch it'll get wet, because there's a fluid flow from the pulp, from the blood flow, the plasma, and it comes out through the tubules. So it's always cleansing the outside of the tooth. But if you eat sugar, there's a hormone that's, I don't remember if it's inactivated or activated, but the fluid flow reverses, and whatever on the surface of the tooth is drawn in, and that's where cavities start. And so, it's strictly sugar. It's got to have a low sugar. They did studies. They had rats, and they gave them a sugar-free diet, but they injected sugar in their abdomen, and they got rampant decay. So it's a systemic disease. It's not just a topical type of disease.
Is that something that can be reversed, or is it just kind of biding time?
If a cavity is actually cavitated, there's a hole, that's not going to repair. But if the tooth is still whole, but it's just demineralized, the white little chalky areas, those can be remineralized if you start brushing and lower your sugar intake. It takes time.
So I get messages a lot on Instagram with people who message me and say, we live the same way you live. We're holistic. We brush, we floss, we eat, organic, we eat well.
Yeah.
But our kids still get they get cavities. I just went to the dentist and he said we have, 6 cavities that need to be filled. What am I doing wrong? Is there something to that, or is it just as simple as you said?
Well, maybe their dentist is like the one that, treatment plan some of my recent patients. Yeah. Maybe they're not really cavities. I had a gentleman bring his 6-year-old in yesterday, and they're just like, we don't know what to do. They said there's 10 cavities, and they want to do crowns, stainless steel crowns, which have nickel. They want to do pulpotomies, and so we found 4 cavities. 2 of them were super small. We're just going to watch them. They're going to brush with betadine to try to arrest the decay. Like you brush with that like once a week, maybe twice a week. And one of the cavities is pretty big. We need to fill it, and the other tooth just has an abscess. It's just totaled out, and we need to pull that one. But there's a big difference in genetics too. For some reason, like you said, my wife and I had 4 children. One of them, no cavities. The other 3, cavities. Even though we really tried to watch their sugar intake. So, I don't know either. I don't understand. We've had naturopaths come in, and their children got a bunch of cavities, and they eat tons of fruit. They have
fruit is still sugar.
They have fruit for breakfast, fruit for lunch, and they think they're doing the best for their children, but it's
fructose still.
Yeah, still sugar.
So let's touch on the mercury fillings. They commonly get called silver fillings, but they're mercury. Whenever I first came to you, I had a couple of these, and I'd even got 1 or 2 removed, but not the proper way. Can you talk about what these fillings really have in them, and what's the correct way to deal with them?
Sure. Yeah, so they're 50% mercury, 500,000 parts per million. Mercury is 2,100 times more toxic than lead. It's the second most naturally occurring toxic element on the planet, next to radioactive plutonium. Wow. And so the melting point of mercury is 38 below zero, and the Fahrenheit and the Celsius scales cross right there. So it's 38 Celsius, 38 Fahrenheit minus. And so at 98 degrees mouth temperature, it's readily vaporizing. You drink something hot like coffee or tea or hot soup or whatever, it comes out 800 times faster. You put a gold crown in a person's mouth that has mercury, it comes out 100 times faster continually. It's just crazy that they haven't outlawed them yet.
Yeah.
Right? Personally, I think it's a big conspiracy because some medical doctors have lectured and said that dentists create 80% of all health problems. And so what would the medical industry do? What would the pharmaceutical industry do if we ban mercury fillings? and we banned root canals and nickel crowns and titanium implants.
People get healthier then.
Mm-hmm.
People get healthier, and those industries would dry up.
Yeah.
So y'all may want to cut this out of the deal.
No, it's
That's just my opinion.
That's what we believe too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
for sure.
it's hard
So-
not to be somewhat cynical.
Yeah.
About-
Why else would they not ban these things? I mean,
Yeah,
there's tons of
all
proof
the-
out there.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, when we remove them, we measure the electrical charge of everything, and we start with the most negative area first. And then we don't cross the midline on any one day. We don't work on the same day of the week, so we don't do Monday appointments. If you're a barber, I'm sorry, you've got to take off work a few days, because there's a 7-day cycle of the immune system. The midline thing, it's all electrical.
Mm.
And if you follow all these rules and then you use a rubber dam to protect the patient from swallowing the particles, and then a big vacuum with 3 filters to suck the mercury vapor away, and then a lot of water spray to try to keep it cool so it doesn't vaporize quite as much. And we have a negative ion generator which binds any mercury the vacuum misses, and then it cleans the air 24 hours a day. So when we do all that kind of stuff sequentially, the patients you have like 0 chance of any kind of harmful side effects.
Mm.
And that's just basically the SMART technique, the safe mercury amalgam removal technique, which one of my friends in Austin came up with that little
Nice.
that little term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's important to get them out, but it's important to get them out correctly.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm sorry.
There's many stories, thousands of stories of people that got them out incorrectly, and I mean horrible stories about how their health was trashed, and sometimes they never come back from it.
Yeah.
So let's touch on, like we've talked about cavities and the mercury fillings. Let's talk about root canals.
Okay.
Because this is something that is so mainstream. People don't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
I know personally, many family members who have root canals. Can you talk about what the procedure exactly is, and why is this so toxic to our health?
Sure. So when you either usually it's a decay that gets too deep, and then the center of the tooth, the pulp, where the nerve vessels, the nerves, and the blood vessels and the lymph system is, the live part, gets infected. And it's a closed system, so you're not going to get a bunch of white blood cells in there to fight the infection. And eventually the infection causes pressure, and the pressure causes pain. You go to the dentist, and he opens it up, relieves the pressure, and the pain goes away, and then he cleans all the pulp out and the dead debris, and he fills it with an inert material. But each root has 2 to 3 miles of pores, we call tubules, which runs, like if you call the main canal a bicycle axle, then these are spokes that run laterally all different directions. 2 to 3 miles of them. The bacteria are 5 times smaller than the tubule, so they can climb in 5 abreast. The white blood cells are 5 times larger than the tubule, so they can't get in there to kill these bacteria. Once the root canal is done, there's no more oxygen in the tooth. Blood vessels are all removed. So the bacteria have to live anaerobically. That's without oxygen. And this is where the big trouble comes in, because anaerobic bacteria produce very poisonous waste products. We're talking things like botulism, tetanus, gangrene, leprosy, E. coli, 70 others. We've identified over 70 anaerobes in root canals, over 100 in cavitations. And so these toxins leach out of the side of the root, get into your bone, get into your lymph system, get into your bloodstream, travel around. Now that's one way they affect your health. The other way is they block the meridians, which are the electrical pathways. So each tooth is an organ, and it's on an electrical pathway from the brain through the teeth to bones, muscles, glands, all kinds of different parts of your body. And we've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times that a particular tooth has a root canal, and we can almost tell what part of the body's got a problem. And when you pull it, many times it heals. So that's the problem with root canals. They're heroes. They save the teeth, but they
Destroy
can
the body.
potentially trash your health. And I have patients with 10 root canals that are apparently still healthy. So, the host resistance in your nutrition and your sleep, and it's a multifactorial issue. Health is, so not just one thing sometimes.
Yeah, so I think we've gathered that in your practice you do not perform root canals. So what are some alternative options if somebody is told that they need a root canal, or what would you do if
And what can they do if they already have root canals? Is there anything on top of that?
Okay, well, the first question is, what do they do if they are told they need a root canal? Many times root canals are done as a convenience before they do a crown. And that's ridiculous. Then you just condemn the tooth, So just got to go to someone you trust and get their opinion on, do I really need a root canal? If you can see a dark circle at the tip of the root, then that's an abscessed tooth. And the cone beam X-ray machine that I was talking about earlier really shows those up. We can take periapical X-rays, the little things in the mouth, and you can't see anything. We do a cone beam in 3-dimensional, oh my goodness, it's just so obvious. So if they don't have a periapical lesion and it's not hurting, then it probably doesn't need a root canal. So, but if it does need a root canal, then I pull them. They need to be extracted. Yeah. And then if it's if it's in between some other teeth, you can do a 3-inch bridge. And most of the bridges now are all ceramic, made out of zirconia, so that's a real healthy material. 20 years ago, most of them were porcelain fused to nickel beryllium, which are terrible. And we still see a lot of people come in with those silver-based metals that are nickel and beryllium. Nickel's the most cancer-causing metal known to man. Mm-hmm. Or you can do a zirconia implant, which are totally inert. They don't block the meridians. 2 of my daughters have them. I wouldn't do them on my daughters if I didn't think they were good. Mm-hmm. And then, if you do an implant, then you don't have to do a crown prep on these 2 teeth. And so a lot of people don't want you cutting any enamel off their teeth. Mm-hmm. So the implant is a great alternative to doing a bridge. But they're both healthy.
Because all these metals, in the fillings or in the root canals, they're messing with the meridians, like you're saying, the electric system of the body, but also with all the EMF waves and everything else. Is it also affecting that too? I mean, is it acting as like some kind of a antenna?
An antenna? Yeah, I think it is.
Picking up some of that energy and disrupting.
Yeah. I've read some research that using your cell phone will cause the mercury to come out of your fillings faster. Mm-hmm. So I think the 5G is horrible.
Yeah.
And concur.
Hopefully
that's why we don't have Wi-Fi in our house.
That's great.
So I had cavitations done by you a year ago or so, and it was my wisdom teeth, I guess, were taken out. Mm-hmm. And they didn't heal properly or whatever, and so you have that cone beam machine that you're talking about. Right. But whenever I first came to you, I had jaw pain, and it eventually, like, my whole face started turning numb on this side, and then it went down my neck and my shoulder too. Wow. And it got worse and worse and worse. And after I had the cavitations done, it all subsided. So
awesome.
I was going to ask you, you've talked about it a little bit already, but most people have never even heard the word cavitation.
That's right.
And I had, luckily, just because I'm a health nerd, had already researched it some, but I was somewhat skeptical. I was like, really, is this a thing? And I had seen a documentary, I think, called Root Cause. It was on Netflix, and then they pulled it. But can you talk a little bit about, what cavitations are and why it's so important to actually deal with them?
Yeah. So there's various theories on why they occur. We don't really know. It could be a residual infection, could be the blood clot disorder. The artificial hormones and birth control pills can cause blood clot disorders. And, for whatever reason, when you extract a tooth, there should be good blood flow in there and oxygen and bone marrow and everything nice and happy. But for various reasons, there's just no blood flow in these areas. It's just a dry hole. And so the bacteria from our bloodstream, we're not sterile inside. There's all kind of bacteria, viruses, funguses. Our immune system's working all the time, if you've ever looked at live blood.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they climb into these dry areas, they have to go anaerobic. And we've identified over 100 anaerobes in cavitations. They're about 30% more toxic than root canals. It's the most toxic thing I know of. And when they cause pain, those are called NICO. It's a small subset of cavitations. Most of them cause no pain. People do not know they have any problem. NICO stands for neuralgia inducing cavitational osteonecrosis. A friend of mine, Jerry Bucco, coined the term. And a lot of people are misusing it. They just call all cavitations NICO. No, they're just the ones that hurt. And so we open them up and clean them out with a special surgery unit called a piezo surgery unit. It vibrates and it will not cut soft tissue. So if there's a cavitation around the inferior alveolar nerve, which you don't want to damage, it'll just clean all the dead bone out around it. It will not harm the nerve. Or if we go through the thin wall underneath the sinus and get into the sinus membrane, it will not cut through the sinus membrane. So it's really neat. And then we irrigate with ozonated water, which the oxygen in the ozone kills all the anaerobes and it flushes them out. And then we use, we draw blood and centrifuge it. We make advanced platelet-rich fibrin, which is just the plasma part of your blood. And we pack the cavitations with that. And that's an amazing stuff. And it brings in blood flow and stimulates healing. And we're getting great results with them now. We've been treating them over 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool, yeah. So a lot of people, myself included, don't really like to floss because, it's just hard to remember. There's even been some studies recently that would say like, oh, flossing doesn't really do anything, yada, yada, yada. But it seems pretty logical that if we have food between our teeth, that's going to cause inflammation. Is flossing really necessary? And what if people don't like to floss? Is there some alternatives that they can do instead of, traditional flossing?
That's a good question. I don't do a lot of flossing myself.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Because it is a hassle, but I don't have anything against it. It works well. It keeps the teeth clean. Yeah. One thing I do is I carry these little toothpick, and it's triangular in cross section, and you put the blunt end next to the gum because the other end's really sharp, and the sides are rough. And they trap the plaque and they rub it off, and I can do this much easier than flossing. There's a toothbrush called a Rotodent, which is patterned after dental polishing, and it has 4,000 little filaments. And the research shows if you use the Rotodent, which at first it kind of tickles the gums, it gets the teeth so clean that it's more effective than brushing and flossing. Or it's as effective as brushing and flossing. But you don't have to floss if you use the Rotodent. Yeah.
Gotcha.
What about, like, I started using a water pick or, like a water flosser. Is that decent as well, option?
There's different types. The water pick, like the Teledyne water pick, it's going to remove food particles.
Yeah.
But the plaque, the bacteria create a sticky pellicle and it's actually stuck to your tooth. It's not going to get that off.
Interesting.
But there's a water irrigator called a hydrofloss, and it has magnets in the handle, and it charges all the ions in the water negatively. So they say just don't use distilled water because there's no ions in distilled water. And so it charges the teeth and the plaque and everything negatively, and so likes repel each other, right? So really keeps the teeth clean.
Huh.
But in general, water pick type things are a mess and they're noisy and they get water
They are a
everywhere.
mess.
Yeah. So
Yeah. If you do it in the shower, then it works.
Yes.
yeah, if you're using one already, then get the hydrofloss, because it's more effective. But
Good to know.
Okay, so when people bring their children to the dentist, a lot of these pediatric dentists are seeing, 2-3-year-olds, and they're doing X-rays at that age. I know you briefly mentioned X-rays before, but are X-rays at that age really truly needed? And how do you kind of balance that risk versus benefit?
well, that's a good question. We usually can't get X-rays on 2 or 3-year-olds anyway, but we see an awful lot of decay in children, and so if it's not caught at the proper time, then you're facing doing a pulpotomy, and the traditional pulpotomies that they teach in school are done with formaldehyde and creosote, and those are neurotoxins. Yeah, and so you don't want to do one of those kind of pulpotomies. The alternatives, there's some research by actually putting PRF in the pulp and trying to heal it and regenerate it, the platelet-rich fibrin, which I was mentioning earlier. And then if they do a pulpotomy, they're going to want to put a stainless steel crown on, and the nickel in there is not good. So the alternative is a zirconia crown, and those are really expensive. So the risk benefit, I had never heard that below 10 years of age it's going to cause damage. So I don't really know about that, but I see tremendous benefit in the X-rays. And the X-rays we use, of course, we have digital X-rays, and I don't know how many dentists have digital now, but a typical set of 4 bite wings, and we normally do 2 on a child. Okay, 4 bite wings is equal to 1 day of radiation on the earth. So we're all getting radiated every day.
Yeah.
The people in Denver, Colorado are getting more radiation than we are down lower elevations, right? And so you're getting 365 days of radiation. If you get 4 bite wings, you get 366 days of radiation this year. So it's not a big deal. And thought it was really interesting that after the atomic bombs were dropped on Japan, everybody assumed that those Japanese people that had got that radiation were going to die young of cancer or something. So they set up a foundation and they tracked them. And those people lived longer and they were healthier than the rest of the Japanese population. So there is a phenomena that occurs. It's like lifting weights. Okay, when you exercise that muscle, you're actually damaging it. But what does it do? It comes back stronger. So you stimulate healing in it, and it adapts and comes back stronger. And they think that's what happened with the Japanese people. So as long as you're just getting a little bit of radiation, it's not a problem. You got to get a lot of radiation before it really destroys you. So, yeah.
So you and a lot of, I think, biologic dentists are probably more likely to try and use like a cleaner or less toxic type of drug for any procedure. I know a lot of dentists use like laughing gas. I don't know if you use that or not, but I know a laughing gas can deplete the body of glutathione, which is kind of a big deal. But
yeah, it messes up B12.
Messes up B12. I mean, is that what do you think about laughing gas? And can you talk a little bit about how you try and seek the less toxic alternative if there is one usually?
I mean, yeah, we use essential oils, peace and calming, and I don't know if doTERRA has one equal to that, but some people just insist on it. So we do have it available in one room, and I don't like using it, but the credentialing, the testing, and all the education to do sleeping pills is just off the chart these days. And I just decided I didn't have the patience to go through all that and everything. So we can't do conscious sedation anymore. So laughing gas is all we have, or the essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
But countless people say, I don't know why I was worried about that. That was so easy.
Yeah.
So many people
I
are
tried to
anxious.
tell you.
A good dentist is more than just, not using chemicals, just having skill too. 'Cause,
And you're talking about chemicals. So like our anesthetic is called Septicane, and that was developed in Europe about 45 years ago. And our FDA finally approved it here in 2001, and I heard about it, within a year of that. There was an article in my biologic dentistry newsletter and said this new anesthetic doesn't break down into aniline like all the other anesthetics, and aniline is the main cancer chemical from cigarettes. Said the FDA known for years that 1 cc of all the other anesthetics equal to smoking 84,000 cigarettes worth of aniline, and this new anesthetic breaks down cleanly.
Wow.
Like, are you kidding me? We boxed up all the lidocaine and mepivacaine and sent it back to the manufacturers. And unless someone insists on no epinephrine, which we use the 1 to 200,000 virgin, which is half the epinephrine and the typical anesthetics, then we use Septicane for everybody.
we only have a couple more.
Just a couple
Okay.
more. I think he's pretty much answered this one, so if you want to do that one, and then we'll close.
Yeah, so one of the things that first got me into like oral health was reading a little bit of Weston A. Price, and he was a dentist, as you know, that traveled around and went to different green zones and saw people with, good teeth that had nutrient dense diets essentially.
Right.
They never flossed or brushed or anything like
Exactly.
that, as far as we know, and had excellent teeth and were in pretty good health. So I guess the question is like, how much does nutrition really play a role in oral health?
It plays a role in everything, man.
Everything.
The native tribes, they had nice broad jaws, teeth were straight, they didn't need orthodontics, no decay. And when they adopted the Western lifestyle with,
Processed
sugar,
foods.
carbohydrates, then their offspring had narrower jaws, crooked teeth, cavities, and it's just some classic work on nutrition.
Yeah.
So it plays a huge role, I think, and because maybe the children don't eat as much of a raw diet, or maybe it's just the nutrition, but the jaws are smaller, but the teeth aren't smaller, and so that's why a lot of us need to have wisdom teeth removed, because there's just no room for them to come in.
Gotcha. That's interesting, because I've always wondered about wisdom teeth, because it's like, did God create us like, obviously he didn't create us wrong, so like why are we having to have these teeth removed?
Exactly.
So that's an interesting
Because
point.
of lack of proper nutrition, the jaws just don't grow as wide and as long as they should have grown.
So we're gonna close. I just first of all want to say thank you so much for your knowledge. We are so
pleasure.
appreciative to you. If you guys are local to San Antonio or in Texas or not, you can find Dr. Wilke at Total Mouth Fitness in San Antonio, Texas. Dr. Wilke, just to kind of wrap us up here, can you give any words of wisdom for just naturally promoting just our overall health? What if you could just like give one word of wisdom to somebody about health and overall health? What would you say? I know that's kind of a broad question.
Well, I'm 67 years old, and I had all the junk removed out of my mouth, and I'm on no medicines. I have no health problems. We raised our children, on superfood and green drinks, and they're all super healthy. It just works. It's just God's way, So that's all I can say.
Don't complicate it. It's God's design for wellness, right?
Absolutely.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you so much. We appreciate having your knowledge and insight.
That's good. I think we.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Oh my
Okay.
goodness. That was awesome.